Hey, welcome to MidDay Café, a special Copilot and Microsoft Graph edition. I'm your host, Michael Gannotti, along with my co-host,
Tyrelle Barnes.
And we are super stoked because there's so much going on in the world of Copilot, which I'm sure you all heard of, unless you were under a rock. But what do we have on tap, Tyrelle, that's going to really get people going?
Well, Mike, I'm super excited. We have an awesome guest today. Her name is Chantrelle Nielsen. Years ago, I used to get to work with Chantrelle at Microsoft, and she's spent like the past 10 years really exploring the enormous Office data set. So she is a product manager on the Graph team. And previous to that, she actually helped build the startup that Microsoft acquired, Volumetrics. And she spent her career running a data science team and R&D and partnerships, conducting and publishing novel research about economics, organizational behavior, with professors from Harvard, MIT, Columbia, Carnegie Mellon. She holds multiple patents for metrics and methods incorporated into Viva Insights. And
next, you're going to tell me she was a neurosurgeon and she surfs.
I don't. She probably surfs, but she does hold an MBA from MIT Sloan School of Management and a master's degree in library and information science. So she's a total rock star, and I'm super excited to have her today to share some of the amazing things they're doing on the Graph team that helps, with Copilot and some other semantic functions that we've talked about in the past. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super stoked because when you think of Microsoft 365 Copilot, the all caps, the foundation for that is the Microsoft Graph as that underlying data source. And she's going to be talking about that, which just coincides with all the amazing announcements from yesterday, including November 1st. We're going general availability.
With Copilot, I know, that's so exciting.
It's crazy. And they were talking about Copilot in Windows. I mean, Copilot is just everywhere. And this couldn't be more timely, this conversation with her, because for our customers, whether they're a healthcare provider, a payer, pharma, medical device manufacturing, whatever in healthcare and life sciences, and you cover also manufacturing. And just any enterprise space, this is huge. So I think without further ado, I'm going to shut my mouth and let's go ahead and cut over to Chantrelle so that we can hear what she has to say about the Graph.
Hey, Chantrelle.
Hi, Tyrelle. Hi, Michael.
Thanks for joining us today. So I briefly shared a little bit about your background and what a rock star you are. And so you're currently a product manager.
I have to cut in. The jury's still out. Do you surf?
I have surfed.
There we go. When she read your bio earlier, I was like, okay, next you're going to say she's a neurosurgeon and she surfs.
It would not be considered good at surfing in any way, but
it's all right. Your cred has just gone way up. There we go.
Awesome. So I know you've done a lot of surfing over data in your career. So I'd love to hear what the Graph team has been up to, what kind of the focus is around Copilot. And I know you were going to talk about and share with us some of the reasons that customers are considering buying Microsoft's Copilot versus building their own Copilot. So would love to hear what the latest is.
Yeah. So I've been at Microsoft for 8 years, and the whole time has been in this team that runs the Graph. When speaking expansively about the Graph, it's the data platform that we build all of our first-party Microsoft tools on, right? So like Exchange and Excel and Planner and any of the Microsoft applications you might use all need to reference the same services and the same data in order to give you the right context and not confuse you as you're moving through all these app experiences. So, but it's older than 8 years that I've been here that we've been hosting customer data online and organizing it and building all the infrastructure out to make that data secure and make it accessible and make it much more intelligent than just a bunch of raw transactional data would be. So that's what the graph is. And the team that I work on is dedicated to making sure that the experiences and tools that people who are not Microsoft employees use to build on the graph are just as good or sometimes better, because you don't have to train for as long, as the ones that our first party, like our Microsoft employees and developers, use. So we want to make it just as accessible, because that data belongs to customers. We're just hosting it for them and stewarding it for them, and make it, and then we want them to love it and to find that data to be really valuable, because we're so impressed by the fact that this is, we are stewarding the biggest data set that could possibly exist in the world about how work is done in organizations. And when you add that all up, all the work done in people's organizations and teams, then that adds up to the economy of a nation. And when you take the economy of nations, then that kind of adds up to child health and life satisfaction and health outcomes for people all over the world. So we're really looking at something that is just much bigger than any given service or business or company.
Yeah, I think customers sometimes don't realize, and even internally Microsoft people don't realize what a massive data company we are. And then on top of that, the LinkedIn economic graph, and you take those two data sets, and we really are able to have a finger on the pulse of work globally. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, and the reason it's like there's not a ton of awareness about this is because, we spend, relatively, I don't know exactly, but, say 5% of our time learning what's there and building amazing things from that data, and 95% of our time protecting that data from any threat, from any breach, from any, unintended exposure. And then we're building really sophisticated, AI models where you're doing a lot more than just looking at some data and not looking at other. You're inferring meaning from data, but you're protecting the exposure of that inference of meaning from the person who doesn't have any rights to see that inference of meaning, because they don't have the right to see that unique combination of data. So it's a huge amount of work, and planning and scoping and secure both the design and the actual physical security of it, that we spend our time doing, and have been doing that for years before, the new advances in AI generation came along.
Yeah, I think that you just laid out some of the reasons that a customer might want to consider buying Microsoft's products with all the security trimming in place, versus building their own. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, what is it when a customer does, maybe they do have a very unique data set or use case, and so it would make sense for them to build their own, but what are the things they have to consider when doing that?
Yeah, I think one of the big things, the reason a customer may want to build their own is because nobody wants to be the company that 5 or 10 years from now just missed the, the explosion in capability. Like, you want to have your people getting in the cycles, using new technology, and make sure that they have a chance to see what it can do. And you have all different kinds of data sets. Like, businesses have totally unique data sets that are totally unique to their own business, that they may have a flow or something that we can't possibly design. Like, there's no way for us to design every single data flow for every single function and line of business. But the reason that they, and we have all the Azure tools and a lot of, great, security protocol that you can use in your tool chain. So there's no reason to worry that, everything is totally insecure if you're building it for yourself. But then if you use the Microsoft Copilot, then you have, you've got all of this security that we have offered to you built in, but mainly you have the data that is there in the Microsoft graph, which is your data, but is, you may or may not have chosen to egress it or to access it in any way. So you're accessing it natively in place if you're using Microsoft's Copilot. And the data itself, when I talk about the graph, that means that we've created kind of more than just a pile of data, we've created a lot of intelligence on it. And so that's actually like many, many steps that somebody, we have thousands of engineers who have built all these many steps of intelligence added onto the data. So like at the foundation, you've got the whole entire graph with an AI platform where we've got all kinds of different models and tools we can invoke at the basic level, and all of that security and compliance, plus the scale and the, real-time availability and the load balancing and everything to make sure that it's not going out of service unexpectedly. And then you take like the individual tenant, we call it a tenant in Microsoft because they're like a tenant in our cloud, right? And you make one graph that's just for that tenant. And that tells you like what is all of the data that's in that tenant. And then you take all that data and you kind of, in addition to having the whole body of a document that's in SharePoint or a meeting transcript that's in Teams, you're slicing it up and you're turning it into like individual keyword text, but also you call it an n-gram, meaning like any number of grams being a root. And so you're slicing it up and you're taking off all the suffixes and prefixes that may make it confusing, so you don't have to have an exact word match. And then you're clustering a bunch of words together because a lot of the time, like the meaning is retained when you have three things, like three words all together or something. And you have acronyms and everything. So you've got a really unique language that we all use at work. And every time you start like at a new company, everyone's like, oh, we use so many acronyms here. But like every company has that. It's because you're embedding in a new culture and a new language when you get to a new workplace. So anyway, so you have that tenant-wide graph full of all that information. And then you put this into what's called like a vector database in space. And so it's helping you to understand related meanings because of the way that words are, or phrases are close to each other in space, meaning they are often carrying a similar meaning. And the examples I always think about are something like, the word Easter and the word Thanksgiving have nothing to do with each other, but they're similar, like they're close to each other in their vector index because they are both holidays. So you might be talking about taking time off or vacations or having a holiday around that word. But then if you're in a retail company, then you might have a whole Easter campaign of clothes that you're, designing and emails you're sending or something. So that can also become like close to another term that would indicate some other kind of marketing campaign. So it depends on your business and the specific context, what that tenant-wide graph of information looks like. And then you have to overlay on that like an understanding of the specific users who are using the data, because a person in your finance department would have a really different set of language that they're using and things that they want to see from someone who maybe works in your marketing department who's designing stuff to get customer information. So you've got the context of what somebody's been working on lately. You've got the fact that they work with specific other people and those other people have their own, interest and knowledge graph. And then you've got just kind of like the habit of whatever they've been doing lately. And then we have a lot of structured, intentional like knowledge models, like Viva topics and answers, where we're getting these acronyms and assigning meaning to them. We're identifying people as subject matter experts around those topics, and then we're giving some experience for the user where they can edit and update those and get even more knowledge in there, so then we can keep accumulating and say what are the related documents. And then we've got the like actual like places in the user interface where you're going and getting information, whether it's Copilot or Context IQ or in your email compose window or whatever you might be doing in any of the app-specific Copilots, where it's giving you, a really important relevance weighting when you're writing a query is just whatever you searched for yesterday. You're really likely to be searching for it again today. Like if I'm looking for the fair yesterday, then there's a really good chance today I'm going to the fair. So I'm looking for more stuff about the fair. But in like 2 months, I probably don't care about the fair at all anymore. But and that's obvious to us as humans, but it might not be obvious to a system unless we're putting all of that intelligence into the model that we're using in order to do the ranking and recall.
Wow.
So all of that constitutes that tenant-wide graph. So that's all work that you have to put in to build something that works for a general map of information and retrieval. So that's why for a lot of use cases, especially the ones that are core, collaboration, information seeking, like just having a meeting about who knows what, that it's probably a good idea to try out licensed Copilot before you build your own line of business type of Copilots.
And, as you were talking through all that and all that goes into behind the scenes, especially that foundational layer with the graph and everything, and thinking about Copilot, which everybody knows now as of yesterday, boom, the big bomb went off for general release, general availability. But we do something, even taking it a step further with what we call the Semantic Fabric, and how we really bring all that to life in Copilot for those users and within their tenant. And can you speak to that a bit? Because again, that whole using something that's already taking advantage of the graph and the fabric, that's a great first start. And can you speak to that a bit, what we're doing?
Yeah, all those pieces that I just went over, like that's what we call the semantic fabric. Like, it's the words and the meanings of the words, but it's also everything around that with the user, personalization and the access that you have versus other people have. So we call all of that the semantic fabric. So the data is inherent in that, but all of that way of expressing the data. And then the other thing that's really important is like, you could build a beautiful, shining system that works perfectly, but if a user is busy and never has a chance to use it, then like both the system will never, get any improvement, and also it's like irrelevant and not worth it to the user to have it. So the fact that we have all of these surfaces where people are writing documents in Word and writing Excel spreadsheets, and we're in this meeting in Teams, and so it's popping up and saying 10 more minutes left. Do you want to, summarize what just happened? So we hope that the more and more people use it, they'll get more open in the way that they work to realizing that they can get help and have a lot of shortcuts, because it's crazy how many shortcuts we have like embedded in all of our productivity tools at work that we don't really think about using, but we did have to learn to use those all at once. And I remember when I worked my whole adult life, but I went on maternity leave and I wasn't using any technology and I wasn't having meetings and I wasn't scheduling my day hour by hour, and I felt so much less productive. And I realized it's because I have all of these tiny little productivity hacks all day long at work that make me feel so productive. And there was like no hacks and no shortcuts and no information at my fingertips when I wasn't online.
You had the spit up hack.
Yeah, there's definitely things that make it a lot easier for babies than it would be otherwise. But man, the pacing was so different. We just get so addicted to having all these little shortcuts, and I'm getting more and more addicted to having little Copilot shortcuts to find me stuff and summarize stuff for me.
They really meet you where you're at, like with us in the center, which was the vision that we launched over 2.5 years ago now with Viva. And so it's amazing to kind of see it just keep evolving and coming to life. But yeah, I love Copilot now, and especially for meetings. It's one of my favorite use cases.
That's for sure the best use case, because it's hard to keep your attention, always there in meetings, and knowing notes need to be taken and everything. So it's really useful.
And we're like right now, I literally am triple booked, and I'm seeing one of the chats going crazy with a whole bunch of stuff for me. But I can go back after the fact, or even once we're done, in process, catch up readily with Copilot.
Yeah, it's that confidence in knowing that, I think sometimes I get to where I'm like, I can just do 3 meetings at once because I can just have a recording and all. Like, I don't actually have that big of a brain where I can absorb so much more information that it makes it seem like I can. But I can relax knowing that information exists. Yeah. And it's the same with the thing that I mostly am focused on with my team right now is that Copilot, we have this amazing ability to access all of the data that's in the graph, all our SharePoint, all our docs, all our emails and chats. That has like a reflection of almost every function in the business, but there's a bunch of systems of record that a company uses that aren't part of the Microsoft 365 suite. Stuff like ServiceNow and Oracle and Salesforce.com and whatever your CRM
Workday,
and ERP system are, Workday, all your HR policy information, all your, legal contracts that your lawyers are accessing, your knowledge base about your products, all your R&D workflows, whether your people are developing, software in like Jira or those kind of tools, or whether they're, scientists using note-taking apps or research apps or drug development workflows. So there's so much specialized software out there that's really core for your business. So all of that stuff can be pretty easily and quickly ingested into the graph and stored there so that you can apply all that semantic index intelligence to the same data and respect all of the same like level of privacy and security and rights to the individual pieces of information there. So that's called graph connectors. And that just gives Copilot so much more knowledge that it can access, so that, it would be frustrating for me as a user if I was, I get all my meeting notes, but it didn't know about the, HR policy that, I'm trying to ask about. And then I'm like, does that because it doesn't exist, or is that because Copilot just doesn't know about it? I don't want my Copilot to be dumb. I want it to know everything. So that's why we have these graph connectors. We have like 100-something pre-built ones, and then it's a software development kit that makes it pretty easy to build your own, because a lot of companies have just fully custom designed databases. So we've got all that we can so far to be able to get customers to bring their data into the graph if they want to.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's awesome, because that was my next question about that next step for customers, really the external data. This has been awesome. I don't know, Tyrelle, do you have any questions for her? Or?
Well, yeah, this has been so like awesome. And my one question is, how do customers how should they think about getting started if they're maybe earlier in on the journey? Maybe they're trying to think out their strategy, and what data sets they connect in first, what graph connectors should they consider? How would they go about deciding on that?
Yeah, most of our customers start first of all with like the really obvious one is that HR policy stuff, like the stuff, the main thing you're looking for on your intranet when you're going there, and you're like, you don't go to your intranet that often, so you're kind of annoyed by, you don't remember, is it benefits dot something, or is it web dot something, and so like all that stuff that everyone's looking for all the time, and then you can just hop out and a link to it. And then the next most common thing that people are talking about is Salesforce or another CRM tool, because we know that we always needing to look up customers, and nobody loves to sit down and do a bunch of data entry into Salesforce, or like have to navigate around a system that they only use occasionally. And then the other most common, any kind of dev tools like Jira, seems to be a lot of, notes and status stuff stored in there that people want to be able to have access to, just in as like in line with their meeting content, or while they're chatting with each other. They want to be able to grab that.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, and for sharing your time with us today. This has been really informative.
Yeah, and really timely. Nice, I mean, given everything that we announced yesterday, this is like, because this is the key and the foundation for it all. So thank you.
Yeah. And we know you're Redmond based, so really appreciate you getting up early for us today, Chantrelle. And I miss seeing you more often, so it's great to connect with you.
I know. I can't wait till you can come over here, or I can make it down there.
That'd be awesome.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, that was fabulous. What great information we just heard from Chantrelle. I love the whole better understanding of building your own Copilot versus buying our Microsoft Copilot, and the Semantic Fabric. That's so interesting. And then also just all of the graph connectors and APIs available to pull in other data sources, because it's all about integrating all of those other data sources too, Mike. So, wow.
It's huge. I mean, this is huge.
Yeah.
And then we bring it all to life through Copilot. So just real quickly, there's just so much that she unpacked, so much from yesterday's announcements. I know I've been getting hit, a lot of customers asking, where do I find information? I had an internal one asking me all about Copilot Lab. And it was like, so what we're going to do.
Your video froze.
My video froze. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I can totally hear you. Okay, it unfroze now.
There we go. I've unfroze. I thawed out. And so what we're going to do is below the post, on our website, we're going to go ahead and include pertinent links to everything you heard today and from yesterday's announcements. So be sure to take a look there, folks. That's all I can say. And subscribe to MidDay Café.
Yeah. And, we're daily, we're updating documentation and information as it becomes available. So keep checking back because if your question's not answered today, it might be tomorrow. And with that, I think we should wrap. Yeah.
So from our headquarters, from my beautiful balmy scenery in your glass house, it's Mike Gannotti.
Tyrelle Barnes.
Have a great day, everybody. Take care. And as always, as I look for the stop recording button,
share the road.
Share the road.